Hello, everybody. This is Manuel from iDalko. Um, this is not our first podcast. This is, in fact, the second. First one topic was on licensing that I done with my colleague Anne. Today, we will go on to another topic, which is more specifically how to use Jira for a non-IT use, but for a business use. And what kind of business use? Today, we'll look closer into HR. How can we use HR workflows, policies, and incorporate them into a Jira environment? Because all of our customers have Jira. So why couldn't they use it in more departments than just the IT department, since the licenses are present? For that purpose, we have asked a very well-known speaker on the part of Atlassian topics, and that is Kamil. Kamil, the floor is all yours. Go ahead.
All right. Hi. I'd like to say hi to all of our listeners and viewers. Hi, Manuel. Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate it. So, what is the idea here? Like, why HR and why run it in Jira? Well, first of all, as you have already said, having an HR module for your Jira doesn't really take too much work or some big expenses because you can always add it onto your existing Jira configuration. So it's not like you'd be running a whole new process that you need expensive add-ons or integrations for. The point is, having HR is something that every company can utilize, right? Every company runs, let's say, onboarding or well, hopefully holding some reviews or perhaps doing some meeting minutes with the people from your team, having like personal, personal annual reviews. Yeah, I already mentioned that. So it's something that almost every company can use, and it comes at a little cost, a little cost of just implementing the process and listening to your HR team. So why Jira Core? Because that was the answer to what why HR. Why Jira Core? Well, about 5 years ago, you all remember the big division between Jira Core, Jira Service Desk, and Jira Software. So Jira Software is one of the most popular types of Jiras there are. That's a fact. It's you can see it everywhere, and it's helpful to agile teams. All right, you have Service Desk is helpful for like ITSM processes, and then there's Jira Core, and it's just meh. It's just something that something it's Jira how it looked before the division in 2015 without any extra add-ons. It's not very interesting, but the reason I'm presenting the HR use case on Jira Core is the reason that you can perfectly run it if you only have Jira Core. I mean, you can run it on software, you can run it on Service Desk, but the minimum requirement is having Jira Core. And that's why I joined these two topics or these two themes together, so that uh, it makes sense even because Atlassian presents it like Jira Core is for business teams, and one of the use cases being HR. So, given my experience from some of my clients that already run HR, I thought I would like join it together, all the bits and pieces, all the different experiences into like one comprehensive module with already various HR processes in it, like onboarding, meeting notes, reviews, and like I'd like to take some time talking about it. And yeah, maybe some of our listeners will find the use case interesting. We'll see. So, do any of your clients here in iDalko use Jira as an HR platform?
Well, in fact, several do. And iDalko in itself uses it for their HR onboarding. Not only onboarding, not only reviews or recruitment, but also like connection with the IT department because they need to buy prepare a laptop. Then a request goes to procurement to procure a laptop for the person or to have other facility accesses like access cards, keys, or whatever. So it's a whole like kind of checklist that we use for it. And the same is for our customers that use it in this case.
So, mostly onboarding, something like that. You know,
Onboarding, reviews, evaluation. Yep.
yeah.
So the whole spectrum.
Hmm. No, I'm asking because to some, having HR in Jira might come off as strange because there's a lot of like specialized tools. So that's why I asked you if any of Addalko's customers are familiar with this use case, and it's nice to hear that actually people in Addalko use it because it yeah, they perfectly can, because Jira can support the process quite well. So I already mentioned the three Jiras, right? So there was software, service desk, and before October 2015, there was like only one Jira. And people piled apps on it. And two of the most popular were Jira Agile and Jira Service Desk, among others, of course. So back in 2015, as you already know, Atlassian decided to split it three ways, like Jira Software, Service Desk, and Jira Core. And I've already mentioned that Jira Core is, well, it's something of an underdog. And, well, before Jira Software and Jira Service Desk came out, you had to have a basic Jira like this, because without it, you couldn't work at all. Nowadays, Jira Core doesn't even appear on Google that much. And Jira Software is much more promoted, and it has a lot more development about it. And however, one of the redeeming qualities of Jira Core is the pricing, which is fairly good. I had an example from server, and on cloud it's very similar. So what's the idea here? Well, Atlassian says that you can use Jira Core for business processes, whereas Jira Software is for like software development, and Jira Service Desk is for like, well, customer help and ITSM. So these are the use cases that Atlassian actually presents for Jira Core, and one of them is well, HR. There's marketing, operations, legal, finance, but the HR one will be our focus today. And again, that's why I've chosen Jira Core for this presentation, because the HR use cases can be actually implemented on any type of Jira you have. This doesn't mean that you need to have Jira Core to run the HR processes. This actually means that you can have either Jira Software or Jira Service Desk or Jira Core, because Jira Core is already a part of the first two. And of course, it's the cheapest option should you like to implement something like this. Again, HR processes. What exactly are these HR processes that I think Jira is quite suited for? Well, it might sound as a really broad topic. So to set some, expectations over it, I have a few features that I'll be talking about today, and how to implement them in Jira, like opening new roles, tracking candidates, onboarding, reviews, meeting minutes, reporting on employee by Jira issues, and maybe even some salary reports to get an idea like how much does an employee cost per month or per year or so. So these are just a few ideas that you can actually use or implement in Jira that are relevant for HR. I've already said that you don't need much to run this use case in Jira, that you don't need a lot more, new apps, software. And yet here am I presenting the apps because the use case can stand on its own even if you don't have any like special apps. But here's a few apps like JMWE, automation for Jira, rich filters for Jira dashboards, tempo budgets that will all help you do this job better. And frankly, a lot of customers already have at least some of these add-ons. So that's the reason why I included them. Like JMWE or Tempo Budget or Script Runner. Those are all household titles that a lot of customers have. So they can enhance the HR use case experience. I'll introduce.
Camille, the most add-ons are indeed quite known, but for some customers that maybe are business oriented, they're less technical. So I would presume that a GMWE is not really something that sticks in their memory and they know exactly what it is about. Maybe you can just have a one catch phrase that describes GMWE, because the rest looks like pretty understandable from its name by itself.
Right. Well, JMWE, or in full Jira MISC workflow extensions, is one of the many apps, one of the many apps. Some of the other can be like Jira Suite Utilities or perhaps Jira Workflow Toolbox that all enhance the user's experience with Jira workflows. So what does it do, and why do I think, or why do I state that a lot of customers already have it? Well, over time, it has been found that Atlassian doesn't really develop their workflows a lot. They don't give as much focus on the workflows. They're not developing new features, maybe because they weren't as requested. So that makes perfect sense. So developers like Becom or Innovalog or Adaptavist created these add-ons that enhance the customer's experience with workflows. And they bring all kinds of things like automatically fill a field when an issue changes status, or create a comment when an issue changes status, or close all subtasks when a task is resolved. Those are like little things, but when you do them on a huge scale, like I don't know, your teams are like closing tens or maybe hundreds of issues per week, it saves time, and yeah, those
So
add-ons help with it.
if I catch it in one phrase, apps, in fact, for those who are not familiar with the Atlassian environment or just know that Atlassian is used within their company in the IT department, the apps extend indeed, as Kamil stated, the features. And there are some 4,000 nowadays that are available in the marketplace. And you could call it, instead of inventing the war motor and customizing your Atlassian environment, maybe there is already an add-on that thought about the same ideas that you have to extend the features in your Atlassian. And that's why many add-ons or apps nowadays exist. And that's very useful if you want to customize without developing.
Right. So these are just a few apps, third-party apps that some of you listeners might have, like Jira Mesh Workflow Extensions, Automation for Jira, Cologne Plus, Script Runner, Rich Filters, perhaps. So I've also included tempo budgets as more of an outlier in this case because it's not that popular add-on as the others that I've mentioned. And you can build a pretty strong HR use case regarding budgeting and salary reporting around it. But again, if you don't have it, it's fine. If you have neither of these add-ons, it's fine. You can run the use case, but it just makes the experience so much better that yeah, it might be interesting looking into them, and I'll be talking about them as we move on. I've also included Confluence, which is of course not an app. It's a standalone application used for documentation, and it also helps in this use case of ours. So moving on. So the first use case I'd like to talk about is how you can track candidates and roles in Jira Core. So what's the idea here? What's tracking candidates and roles? Well, first of all, you would create a whole new Jira project for this use case. And it will be helpful because you would then restrict access to this project more easily, or you can implement issue security, because what this is going to be about. So we'll be choosing roles that we need for our company and tracking candidates that have actually sent us their CVs. So what this means is that you'll be handling sensitive data, and you need to have secure access or limited access to that project. So that's why we'll be creating a whole new Jira project that will have its own issue types, its own workflows, and you'll also have an easier time searching for these issues because you would know that they're in a dedicated project. So we create a restricted project. We create issue types like role, candidate, or contractor, matters on who will be applying to this position or who are we considering for the role. We can create some project roles for people that will be approving these roles and candidates, and some custom workflows. So this is an example of a role request workflow. For our listeners, we have a 5-step workflow that when you create an issue, you would go into the first status, into to-do status, and go through all the approvals that you need, like, I don't know, line manager approval, finance approval, superior approval. You can add as many as are necessary, because these will be the people that will actually approve the role and that it's really needed. So we have a short workflow with a few approvals on the way. Then we'll be searching for the candidates, and we can either cancel the role at any time because, well, it's not needed, or we can say that the recruitment's been complete. We will also utilize some fields on the way. When we would create a new role, we need to know, for example, who is the role for? Like, is like agile tester or a DevOps person or a tester. So a few extra fields on the role issue would be a big help.
And you can construct it in such a way that your approvals shouldn't block your process, because you could kind of say if one does not approve within a certain amount of time, it goes up to the next, or it has to be a sequential approval, or in whatever order, as long as they all are done before the statuses are changed. So many of those things can be have a certain um, sustainability in the process, that it's not blocking anywhere.
Yes, but then again, each stakeholder needs to voice his approval. What I've seen that as a kind of a blocker was that what the stakeholder couldn't get into Jira for whatever reason. Maybe he didn't have the right permission, and he just wrote to the HR person that administered the workflow, just, okay, approve it for me. So the HR person should also have the option to say, yes, I approve on behalf of John Doe that this role is approved. So yeah, something like that. And the role request should have a few extra custom fields. Like I said, what is the role? Like, is it a tester? Is it an admin? What's the expected salary? How much are we willing to pay him? Where he's gonna work? Which of our offices? Who will be his superiors that will approve of the role, possibly? Things like that. So once we have a role chosen or created, we can track candidates below it. They can be either full-time employees or contractors. It largely matters on who will be who will we consider for this position, if it's temporary or permanent. So there's like 2 issue types, employee and contractor, because that'll be a very easy way to differentiate, as in who are we looking for. So here's again an example of a workflow for the candidate. Like an issue is created, so we discuss it internally. The stakeholders read his CV and say, okay, let's invite him for an interview. And that's the next status, interview. So the interview happens. We give the applicant an offer. And he can then either accept the offer, which is the next workload status, or he can say, okay, no, I would like to have this much. So then it goes into the status of final offer. Like we will give him the final offer. Like, okay, so it's this, or it's I don't know, try another company, whatever. And then he can either accept the offer, or we can transition the candidate to hiring cancelled, or a similarly named status, so that he doesn't appear on the stakeholders' dashboards and things like that. So either the final status will be employee hired or hiring cancelled. Accept, refuse. So here I would show a demo Jira but because we have listeners on our podcast, I'll just talk about a few things that might be also necessary to set up in the project. So I would definitely set up a permission scheme that would say that only users, I don't know, maybe the line managers or HR people would have the browse project permission, because the browse project permission means you see issues in this project. So it's really important to set the permission scheme just right. Otherwise, other users of the Jira instance could be able to see the sensitive information like CVs, phone numbers, all kinds of like GDPR, privacy shield protected information, and you don't want that to happen. So make sure to set up your permission scheme just right. Maybe you'll need some creating and tweaking with project roles. So you always choose the right users to approve the role, or maybe even improve the final offer for the employee. You would tweak a bit with the workflows, like only people in the line manager role can approve of the role in the line manager approval status. So that's also something that you might wanna set up first. There's the issue types, there's the fields like role, required salary, or expected salary, type of contract, full-time, part-time, contractor, uh, and so on. So this is a very basic overview of the onboarding process, but or well, onboarding, tracking roles and candidates. And I've mentioned that some apps might enhance the experience. So here's one. What might be really nice is to have customized notifications for the stakeholders, because them being line managers or superiors, they might have a lot on their table, and you really want to avoid spamming them with Jira, right? So if you have Jira Mist workflow extensions, automation for Jira, or even script runner installed, you can send emails to the necessary stakeholder via a workflow post function whenever you need their approval. So this helps with notifying the necessary people without just spamming them with like each operation that happens on the issue. You would probably just turn off the notification scheme. Maybe it largely matters on how much you want your stakeholders to be informed of. So if you use the custom notifications via email, they will only get notified when a new role is, for example, created, or it needs their approval to proceed. So that might be useful to not swamp your stakeholders with notifications, because as every Jira admin knows, the moment your users put their notifications into a separate folder in their mails, that's bad. Another bonus, automatic summary. I've already mentioned that you can on your roles, you can fill the role name, the required mandate rate, or the estimated mandate rate, on things like maybe where is he going to work, or his name. So if you have script runner, there's an interesting module called behaviors in it, and you can let it create good looking issue summaries, which will be not used not only to label issues nicely, but they can be used onward in the email sent from Jira. So they also save time, and you make sure that the summary of every issue looks good. So how do you do it, or how it's done? Well, the behaviors plugin can behave in such a way that it takes data from X fields like name, role, mm, maybe even the salary requested in case of the candidate or employee issue type, and it automatically creates a summary based on those three fields. So what happens is you can avoid human error when labeling the issue, and every issue will be neatly named. And I think that's nice because everybody gets around the project better. So we can further improve the workflow by like adding additional stakeholders, additional statuses and notifications. Maybe we can even send the CVs via our notifications from JMWE and so on. So that's for the first use case. And do you have any thoughts on it, Manuel?
Yeah, I was thinking, what about, indeed, you said emails and so on. Requests I had several times for people who are using or want to use Jira for an HR purpose, is that they are most of the time subscribed to platforms like whatever Indeed.com or more locally like vacature.com or anything else that's used. Those type of platforms send CVs when somebody applied to a certain role. And yeah, to avoid that they need to enter anything manually, it would be a lot of work to have those CVs, create an issue, attach it, and so on and so on. So, is there anything specifically you have thought on it?
No, that's actually a great idea you had, because as you all probably know, when you can set up a Jira project in a way that when an email is sent on the special address that's handled by your application, it can create an issue. So it might actually be quite interesting to let these websites, provided they send you the relevant candidates, of course, to let them send you these emails with new applicants and let them be created as a new issue in Jira. Now, the process would be limited, as in you couldn't choose the issue type, whether it's like an employee or a contractor, but usually without any add-ons. But you can just create, let's say, an issue type from an external applicant, something like that. So I think that's a really great idea, and you can use it even in reverse. You can send the recruitment agencies that you're working with the email from Jira. So, hey, we're looking for tester for Agile. His salary should be blah. Contact, I don't know, contact Manuel if you have any questions. So yeah, you definitely are on point there. You can send emails like that or have them sent to Jira. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Right. So here's a fairly special one. Deleting sensitive data. So the next use case is the next step after selecting your candidates. So let's say you have chosen your candidates, but there's plenty of data after like unsuccessful applicants. Their names, MD rates, CVs, GDPR protected data. You don't want to fall to the wrong hands. So how to manage it as carefully as and as easily as possible. So again, if you have script runner and automation for Jira, they're here to help you out. So what's the best way to remove GDPR sensitive data from Jira? Well, if you replace the data with something else, like rewrite the field, the information stays there. So we can do that. Erase the data, that's the same thing. The old data remain in the issue. So what remains? Well, doing something with the whole issue, right? So you can move the issue into an administrator-only project, or better yet, delete it. But because a deleted issue can't be easily recovered unless you use some very specific apps, I have like a backup on hand, you can move those issues. And this is a good way to anonymize data. And let's check out how to do it in an easy way. Or another option would be to use as issue security level,
Yeah.
limited only to admins.
So anonymize is in this part you mean by GDPR rules that if somebody is not wanting to be kept in the selection database or recruitment database, that you can move it to an anonymous archive, you could say so that it complies with the GDPR rules that are um, applying in Europe.
Something like that, yes. And there's an interesting use case where if you have automation for Jira or some groove scripting skills, you can easily set up a rule based on when you want your candidate to be deleted from Jira. So, but for starters, I would recommend the issues to be moved, not deleted. so you can test if the automation works right, or if you don't need the candidate issues anymore, perhaps because the candidate you chose wasn't onboarded in the end and you need to choose from other applicants, you can simply move the issues and not delete them. Automation with Jira sadly doesn't allow for moving the issues, but you can set up the rule in Script Runner. Now, you might want to retain some of the candidate data, even though it might need to be anonymized. So your company might want to report on how many applicants were there, for example. But you can anonymize the issues so they remain in the same project and actually remove all the necessary database data. Such a script can be easily created in Script Runner because there will be only empty space in the issue history section, as the actual values in the database will be deleted or replaced with the string anonymized. So this is something that sadly our listeners cannot see, but we have already used a similar script in one of the companies I worked in, and we needed to anonymize the issues without deleting them or moving them. So it's possible. Again, I'm not a developer, so I couldn't describe the script as well as a developer could, but you can anonymize the issues so they remain in the same project, but have all the sensitive data removed, even from the database and of course from the issue. So it's possible to do that in Script Runner. So there's three options here. You can move the issues, you can delete them, or you can delete all the data, but you need to delete this from the database. I don't think that will work on cloud because you don't have direct database access. So it's more like a special tweak for data center or cloud. But moving and deleting works just fine. So that's for the use case of deleting the sensitive data.
And moving, you consider archiving as well, Kamil?
As for archiving, I'm not sure how much compliant would that be with the GDPR rules. So I don't know if that's like a valid approach.
Yeah. I was not
So
asking in accordance to GDPR, but rather in general. Let's say I have 10,000 CVs, but many of them are like 5 to 6 years old. Will I still keep them as being interesting to send mailings to, or would I rather archive them so they don't figure anymore in
right.
my project?
Right. Well, I know that some project archiving can be done via tools like, I don't know, Configuration Manager or Excelate, or perhaps they're like Backbone or so. So archiving is definitely possible, but again, it largely matters on the legality of the whole process, like whether are you even authorized to keep the data on your machines or somebody else's for that matter.
Okay, thank you.
So another part of the HR use case is tracking employee data. And even though it might sound menacing, we're simply talking about things like where does this person work, or how long has this person worked for us, or where is the next review, or what feedback does he have for us, things like that. So let's go over how to do so. So we'll be tracking the new team member himself and create a new issue type for him. In case of many issues in the recruitment project, it might be also useful to create a whole new project to separate recruitment and HR related tasks and employee information, so you don't have too many issues at one place. You will also have like a workflow representing the usual employee lifecycle from onboarding to regular work to either, I don't know, leaving the company, retiring, being on maternal leave, something like that. And we will use it for a new issue type called team member. Again, there's plenty of fields that you can use if you want to track information about your team members, and in each company it might be different. Again, those might be like name, location, salary, mandate rate, you know the drill. So those are just a few sample ones that we could use, like name, and well, you get the idea. So you can also enable review creation by having the project browsable, as in Regular users will browse project permissions, but they won't see any issues because of issue security level. Now, this might be a little bit techno-babbly, so let me get it to the nuts and bolts. All users that will be liable to leave a review or tell some feedback, because some companies actually work like that. They send their employees a survey. They fill it out with things like, I don't know, are you getting clear information? Or how do you work with your team? Or is there something that you would like to learn? What are your goals for the next quarter? Things like that. So you can let them make a survey into your HR project. They will not see any issues except for those that they have created to, of course, not let them to the sensitive data. So for the more technical admins out there, you would put reporter into the permission schemes browse project permission, because that would mean that also the reporters of the issues can see their issues. So yeah, or you can simply use a server desk module, but given that we're working with Jira Core, I'll keep it simple. But if you have Jira Service Desk, it's much better because your uh, uh, hmm, your employees or colleagues can leave feedback on your customer portal. Okay, so one of the fields that you would create on your issue, and I already said that there would be like new issue type team member with his own fields, with his own workflow. One of the fields that you could create on your issue is the date of the next review, about which you would want to be reminded as his line manager, for example, or the HR person responsible. So you would create the date field, put it on the issue, and create a filter that lists all the employees and their next review date. So there's like a example of a filter where you see all the team members that will have their next review in like 14 days or sooner. You can put this filter on your Jira dashboard that you usually use to be reminded of the team member reviews. Or yeah, there's plenty of ways to go about it. You can set up like a filter subscription to make sure that you will be mailed all the necessary issues in time, things like that. So for our listeners, I have included a JQL example that says issue types equal to team member, and the next review is less or equal to 14 days. So that way you will be reminded of the reviews. So one of the extra tips that I would give at this point, perhaps using software like, or I'm sorry, software app like Clone Plus by Bob Swift, would be when the life cycle of your candidate reaches its end, and that is that the employee or contractor was accepted, you can clone the issue into a team member issue. So you can follow up with all the information that you already gathered about him on his candidate issue type. So it's again something extra that you might do with an add-on that makes your job a bit easier. Or if you have Confluence, you can create your own review template. So there's quite a few possibilities here. Because if you hold reviews, it would be nice to keep their content somewhere, right? So you can use Confluence for that. You can create a custom review template connected to the Jira issue. So you have like a team member Jira issue that has a link to Confluence to, I don't know, John Doe 3 months, John Doe 6 months, John Doe's survey after 6 months. The point here is that if you want to know something about a particular employee, you will simply have to find his team member issue and you will find everything in it. His reviews, his feedback, maybe even his candidate issue. So yeah, keeping everything in one place. If you have server or data center, you can also easily filter by employee data. You create a custom dashboard with with a rich filter controller and a regular filter when you can easily find employees by location, contract, technology that they know. And for those of our listeners that don't know what rich filters are, rich filters is a way to put quick filters that you know from Jira software boards on your Jira dashboard along with a filter. It's very simplified as I'm explaining it, but it saves time and it's very convenient even for non-technical users. Or of course, the employee might enter his feedback through a Jira Service Desk portal, which again saves time and worries when you set project permissions, and you can create like a HR service desk along existing Jira Service Desk projects, or now, as it is known, Jira Service Management projects. It's also a much easier way to enter tickets, and you can also translate your portal via via the translation for Jira Service Management add-on. So yeah, your employees are onboarded. You're keeping an internal database to track them. You track important dates, onboarding information, reviews, feedback, things like that. So that was the third use case, how to track their data in Jira.
Thank you, Kamil. You certainly deserve the drink. I think we had quite a good overview so far. How many more cases do you have prepared for us?
Only the last one regarding tempo budgets.
Okay, go ahead, and then I will. I do have some questions afterwards, so but please go ahead first.
Right. This one will be very brief because it's like a bonus use case. Because at the start, I promised that you will only need Jira Core to run all of these use cases, and you do. But in case of tempo budgets or tracking employee costs and salaries, you will need an extra app, and that's well tempo budgets. So this will be more like an overview about how it really works. So this final use case is for tracking employee costs and salaries for both full-time employees or freelancers, contractors, and yeah, what's the idea here? So if you have the tempo budgets add-on, you are able to track the costs of the time that they spent in Jira, right? So you can track monthly cost as a form of recurring salaries. You can track logged hours for contractors or external workers. And Tempo Budgets does it by connecting their work logs with the with one folio, and the folio is like a one budget that you are running in Jira with the help of Tempo Budgets. So you create a folio, like one budget, and then you would either manually add the costs, as in, so there's John, and he costs me $10,000 every month. I'm just making stuff up, but you enter your full-time recurrent employees like this, and then you can use time tracking to track hours of your freelancers and contractors and set their cost rates. And the way this works is that they log their hours, time passes, but on the background, everything is being recorded by Tempo Budgets. Everything is recorded into this one folio of yours. And the way that is helpful, or why it might be interesting to use it, is that you can produce a monthly report from Tempo Budgets, like an expenses report, that'll show you how much did the whole team cost, or how much time did they log per month, per year, per quarter. What I found really interesting about this use case is that you can use it for like setting like salary expectations, as in how much will the employee cost us in a year, because you can also plan the budget in advance. And based on, for example, how much hours do the freelancers or contractors work here, you can do like a backwards report for the previous month, which you can use as a base for the for their salaries, for the money that that you pay them for their locked hours. So personally, I've been using tempo budgets on a project of mine where only freelancers and contractors or part-time people are employed, and it works great. I don't have to, calculate their hours and their hourly costs. I just run up a report from tempo budgets, and okay, there's a mortifying report of how much did they cost in the past month, but a useful one nevertheless. So like every add-on, tempo budgets is free to evaluate. So even from those of you that are like project managers, it might come useful to you. It's a tool aimed mainly for like project managers, but I find it useful for HR too. So that's it for the final use case.
The Q&A would be for listeners if more people would are on the podcast. So I'll try to sum up a little bit, and you can always correct me if I'm wrong, Kamil. So we've seen the use for Jira can be in many domains other than just IT or development. We saw many examples. The goal, in fact, of a tool is not to create work, but to collaborate on work. And how to collaborate on work is that instead of having 10 different tools around the company, you can have most of your things in a Jira environment where all is involved with processes, workflows, approvals, and many other possibilities. So you have an overview in just a click. What's the status on your hiring a person, if facilities has done their job, if IT done their job to onboard the person or to offboard the person. So it can go really, really extensive and really far. On the other hand, it's good to say that is Jira built to be the ultimate HR tool? I can say, I don't think so. Because you have other tools that have a sole purpose of doing administration of payroll or recruitment or anything else. But what do they lack is the integration within the company to share the information and to collaborate on those parts. So instead of sending emails everywhere to have something prepared for an onboarding or offboarding, it's all done within one tool that divides the tasks and controls the tasks and measure the tasks on every part. I think I said it about all. I don't know if you have anything to add on it, Kamil?
No, not really. You're absolutely right. You might have specialized tools, but they might not have the necessary outreach throughout the company as a central tool would have. So, yeah.
A central tool, which is in most cases already implemented anyway. And it's not so that an HR department will have right away 200 new licenses required, but there's in any user tier, most of the time they have some extra users that are available that can be added right away that they're already paid for. Okay, good. If I would say we can do a wrap up of this, and we come to an end of our podcast. I would thank you, all the viewers / listeners, for your attention. It's the end of the year, so I was told I needed to be very polite and forthcoming, and wishing you all a great end of year and a successful end of year, although we were struck by something called COVID. But let's look for the best in the 2021. I thank you all very much. And if any questions, or you might have ideas for a podcast, or a new guest for a podcast, or any remark on how we should make it better, feel free. Always welcome to share your ideas. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Cut and stop.